Welcome and happy Columbus Day. That's right. Today, October 12th, is the traditional celebration of Columbus. That was changed to a Monday a few decades ago. But did you know that there's a Western New York connection to Columbus Day? We're going to learn all about that on this week's edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report, which as always is brought to you by...
Each week, our community makes history. Each week, you make history. And each week, there's only one source to turn to for the first take on history. You know what that is? Subscribe to the Central right now to discover the history being made in your own backyard.
The Menden Honey Lake Falls Lima Sentinel. More than just your news, it's your history. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. Join us each episode as we discuss fantastic topics ranging from history to science to the strange and the wonderful, as well as the treasured spirit with which our region has infused America. We challenge you to consider all things Greater Western New York, from our region's very beginnings to how it inspires, how it empowers, and why it is so admired. Here's the host of the State of Greater Western New York Report, Chris Carosa.
Hi there and welcome everyone to today's edition of the State of Greater Western New York Report. I'm Chris Carosa. With me today is John Vecchio. John is the Executive Director Emeritus of the Italian Cultural Center of Buffalo. Now, that's not the official name. I'll let him tell you the official name in a moment. But first, John, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself before you got involved in the center. What did you do for a living? How did you earn your bread on the table?
Chris, thank you for having me today. So I started out as an elementary school teacher and in a Catholic school. That's no longer, unfortunately. And when that job folded, I worked at a school in Niagara Falls with kids that had sealed records for murder, pins, assault. It was quite a different shift. And I got myself into banking. I worked at M&T Bank here in Buffalo for 23 years. Also Fleet, which took me around the Eastern Seaboard. And when that part of my career was wrapping up, I decided to go back to education. I became the Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Trocaire College here in Buffalo. It's a nursing college. And in that role, I really discovered what a blessing it is to work with donors and the impact they make.
Yeah, and that ended up being very critical in your role with the center. So tell us a little bit about the facility and how you became involved in it and what sort of changes took place while you were executive director.
Sure. So I started my own fundraising firm, Vecchio and Associates, back in 2017, and one of my first customers. I also did work for the Buffalo Naval Park and for the Ronald McDonald House. But I was approached by former Supreme Court judge, Salvatore Martocci, my friend Janice Barrett, and this pediatrician who was in his late 80s, Dr. Francesco Giacobbe. They took me to Mulberry's restaurant in Lackawanna, and they pitched this idea of a grand vision for an Italian cultural center located in a former library in North Buffalo. I wasn't quite sure this had legs, but I knew it had passion, so I took the job. It was daunting, but it was exciting, and I found myself working with contractors, working with donors, working with the community, politicians, and we bought this North Park Library for $50,000 hard-earned dollars on December 10th of 2019. In 2020, we began renovations of it. We had to abate asbestos, do a whole bunch of stuff, and our friend COVID hit. So believe it or not, it stalled work for about 6 months because we couldn't get people to work there. There was all those restrictions, but it didn't stop me from raising money, Chris. And I raised a heck of a lot of money during COVID. People understood the gravity of what we were doing. And the bottom line is we raised $2 million and opened on Columbus Day of 2021. And it was just an amazing moment. And our center includes now a immigrant museum, which tells the story of immigration and those who settled in Buffalo. We have a gift shop, an espresso bar and cafe. We have a fireplace room where we have social events. We have a $90,000 culinary kitchen. We have classrooms for Italian and Sicilian lessons, and we have a performing arts center. All in a really short period of time, but that just goes to show you the passion of Italian Americans here in Buffalo, New York.
So tell us a little bit about some of the people involved in this process. Who were they? Why were they interested in it? And how did you feel about working with them?
Well, you know what? I grew up on the west side of Buffalo, and my mother was from Trentino, which is in northern Italy. My father's people were from a town called Pacerno, south of Naples. And, we were taught to speak English when I was a young man. I heard Italian my whole life, but really never spoke Italian. And at the end of the day, this gave me an opportunity really to get back into my heritage. I work with some outstanding people. There's Dr. Francesco Giacobbe, our founder. He and his wife, Renata, realized that their grandchildren really didn't understand Italian. And Doctor, who was a obstetrician here in Buffalo and credited with helping 250,000 Buffalo babies, most of them Sicilian and Italian, he saw the need for language, and language really perpetuates the culture, right? And so what he did is he started teaching his grandchildren Italiano proprio, at the kitchen table, and then friends wanted to learn Italian, and then their parents wanted to learn Italian because they were traveling to Italy. Long story short, what happened was he rented a storefront, a pizza shop, and he started conducting rather, Italian lessons there, and it started to outgrow itself. So he tapped former mayor, the Honorable Tony Masiello, who's on the left there in the checkered shirt, our second Italian American mayor, and he, along with Mario Jacobi, who's standing to his left, Donato Curcio, who's in the center, yours truly in the back, Dr. Giacobbe with the COVID mask on, and our friend, restaurateur and benefactor Russell Salvatore. And what's interesting about this particular night is I went there hoping that Russ would consider a gift to the Italian Cultural Center, and he handed me a check for $250,000. It was a game changer. It was just the spark and catalyst we needed to make things happen there. And we renovated this place and turned it into something that Italian Americans are very proud of.
Well, I want you to tell us the story about the sign in the front, because that was a pretty interesting story. I'll put the picture up for you.
Oh, sure. So I asked one of my colleagues, Carol Moriallo Damon, I said, I need a sign for the center. Do you know anybody who does signs? And there's some beautiful signs around Buffalo. She goes, I got just the right guy. So I meet this guy. His name's Francis Listingi. And Francis does hand-carved 23.75 karat gold signs on mahogany. And he's done signs for like Narden Academy, Oak Brook Country Club, all this great stuff. And so I never heard of him. I asked him if he would help me. He said his sign would cost $10,000. I said, well, it looks like I need to go someplace else. I don't have $10,000 for a sign. He donated the sign. I find out his family's from Bari, Italy. And this guy was originally a brother of charity. He was in the religious life for 10 years. He decided to step away, married a woman, Iris, who taught at Narden Academy. And when he left, they gave him a suit and $100. And he took the $100 and promptly invested in Apple stock. This was 1968, and he is a self-described poor man's millionaire. So not only did he make the signage for our center, the interior of our center is dotted with his beautiful signs, but more importantly, a couple of months ago, he told me he wanted to do something for us again. And I thought, well, we don't need another sign. But he had something bigger in mind. And I'll cut to the chase. He surprised me and handed me a check for $600,000 a month ago. And he took us out of debt. We owe nobody anything. So our mortgage is paid, our debts are paid. And remember, we opened the door on October 12th of October 8th of 2021. This is a great picture of our courtyard. The courtyard was in shambles when we bought this property, Chris, and we rehabbed it. Russ Salvatore helped us do that with his gift. And what you're looking at is our pavers that lead to the fountain, and of course flanked by the Italian and American flag. The actual visual of this, though, is from the street, is that the American flag is on the left, just to be proper. But that fountain was hand built by Italian craftsmen here in Buffalo, but it was imported from Ravanusa, Sicily, as well as all the light standards that are in the courtyard. And that fountain is just stunning, and it took 33 days to actually build because it came in pieces. It was put together or formed in Sicily, shipped by boat, rail to Buffalo, and then unloaded, and then each piece had to be mortared and put in place. So we are so proud of that. It's a piece of Italy here in Buffalo, New York. And Chris, I understand you are from Buffalo, New York, and we're so proud that you're a native son. And I can't wait to serve you the best espresso coffee in town at Centro, Culturale, Italiano di Buffalo.
Okay, I'll do that. I am not imported from Italy. My grandparents were, so but I am of that ilk. So let's take a quick break here. We'll spend more time in the second half talking about Buffalo's connection to Columbus Day. A lot of people don't know this. It's a really interesting story, and it tells you a lot about why we have Columbus Day to begin with. We'll be right back after this message.
Through the mists of time, nature and man have both created and buried treasures beyond the imagination. With the ages, these riches slowly dissolve into mere myths until they are forever forgotten. But there are those brave souls who tirelessly cling to the truth, ever seeking to discover the undiscovered, to reveal what has always been there, to uncover the hidden gems of a land thought forsaken but loved by millions. 50 Hidden Gems of Greater Western New York. Discover the secrets in your own backyard. Buy your copy now at 50hiddengems.com.
Well, welcome back to the State of Greater Western New York Report. I'm Chris Caruso. With us today, John Vecchio. John is Executive Director Emeritus of the Italian Cultural Center of Buffalo. And in the process of that role, he's been able to meet a lot of very interesting people. He recently had lunch with the son of Mariano Luca. Who's Mariano Luca? You may not have heard of him, but you should have. John, tell us who he is. Give us his background first, and then we'll explore his role in Columbus Day.
Sure. So Mariano Luca is um, a son of Buffalo, born of Italian parents, and he actually watched his first parade, his first Columbus Day parade, at age 4 in 1906, and so he had a real passion for making Columbus Day a national holiday. He was a reporter for the Buffalo News. He formed his own publication, The Warder, Warder, and his writing was so prolific and so interesting that a Buffalo News reporter engaged him to actually go to Europe and interview Mussolini, interview heads of state in different countries, including Italy, and publish his stories in the Buffalo News. But the real driving force with Mariano Luca was that he wanted to create a national holiday for Columbus. And, over 15 million people, including myself, identify as Italian Americans in our country. And, our Italian immigrants prevailed against the odds of daunting voyages, poverty, language barriers, and intense discrimination. And Chris, they didn't do so for honor or for recognition, but today we remember and their sacrifices and their legacy. And the one Italian who was born in Genoa, Italy, was Cristoforo Columbus. And Cristoforo, who we call Christopher, we all know that he sailed the ocean's blue in 1492. A real pivotal person that Italian Americans have identified from the earliest uh, immigrants that came to this country back in the 1860s and 70s. And so Mariano Luca wanted to ensure that history was preserved and his legacy was honored.
So before we get into Mariano's role, let's talk a little bit, remind everybody how Columbus Day really came about. So what Mariano is going to be involved with is the federal holiday.
Right.
But Columbus Day really started off as a series of states holidays beginning in the late 1800s, 1891, 92 to be exact. John, tell us the story of how that came to be and why Columbus was chosen for this particular role in America, particularly as it pertains to the Italian American community.
Sure. So it's so ironic, really, that Columbus Day celebrations in our nation began with violence. So it began with the murder of David Hennessy, a New Orleans superintendent of police, on the evening of October 16th of 1890. He was a popular policeman. He was gunned down as he walked home from work, and while he bled to death, a witness asked him, "Who did it?" "Dagoes," he reportedly whispered, using a slur for Italians. And so on March 14th of 1891, prominent New Orleans citizens, including future mayors and governors, led America's largest ever lynch mob into the darkest pages of U.S. history. Holding torches, rifles, rope, this mob of vigilantes stormed into the parish prison and pulled out 11 Italian Americans. Thousands assembled outside the jail and cheered the wrongfully accused as they were riddled with bullets, hanged, and ripped apart. The Italian government was so outraged, they protested and were on the verge of declaring war with the United States. To help resolve the issue and curry favor with the Italian American voters, U.S. President Benjamin Harrison held the first National Columbus Day celebration in 1892, which was 400 years after the navigators' historic discovery of America. And it was actually intended to be a one-time pacifier to keep Italian American vote in his pocket. Ironically, Harrison did not attend the largest Columbus Day parade in the nation in New York City, but his opponent, Buffalo's own Grover Cleveland, did. And he won, and ever since, the Italian vote was curried by the Democratic Party. And now, as son of Buffalo, Mariano Luca would be the catalyst for Columbus Day being a national holiday. And it's really interesting how it circles back to Buffalo.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was interesting about the 1892 Columbus Day is at that same time, again, you're talking about the 400th
Sure.
year anniversary of Columbus, but just within America, Columbus was really uplifted. I mean,
Sure.
he was since the beginning of American times, and when I say American, I really mean the English
Sure.
colonization. Revered. It was, I think, the Cotton Mather really referenced him as as a hero, and that just ascended until we get to the point of 1892, where throughout America, Columbus is honored. In fact, the expo in Chicago, the big exposition, big fair in Chicago, the World's Fair, was called, I think, the Columbian Expedition, to honor Columbus. So there is this a very American thing about Columbus merging with this, you might call it guilt,
Oh,
or what
yeah.
they did to the Italians. And hey, Christopher Columbus is Italian. We want to be nice to the Italians. We like Christopher Columbus. So let's make this holiday Columbus Day. And so that's how we got the first one. But then, it was celebrated within states. And then Mariano comes in the 1900s. It's not quite mid-century, or 20s and 30s, I think, right? And tell us what he did.
Well, Mariano Luca really was a crusader for a National Columbus Day. And he petitioned congressmen, senators, presidents, and there's a picture, and I don't have it with me, but uh, we have it in uh, our storage area at the Italian Cultural Center of Mariano Luca shaking President John F. Kennedy's hand, and what John F. Kennedy reportedly told Mariano was, Mariano, you'll get your Columbus Day when I get back from Dallas, Texas. And we all know what happened in Dallas, Texas. But it wasn't actually until a joint resolution um, in the Senate and Congress on February 17th of 1971 that uh, Columbus Day became officially a national holiday. And I obviously cut through decades and years of Mariano's work, but he was a relentless force in this effort, and he actually um, went to Washington D.C., um, rented an office, and he was on Capitol Hill talking to as many people as he could um, for years to make sure that happened. So he met President Kennedy in '63. He had an office there in '66, and it took until 1971 for it to happen. And like fine wine, Chris, nothing happens quickly. Good things take time. They need to be, you know, visited. They need to be appropriately cultivated and stewarded. And that's really what Mariano Luca did for the nation, but a proud son of Buffalo. And I happen to have a picture. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't.
yeah. Why don't you show us that picture, but also tell us you recently met with someone in that picture, right? And
Right.
tell us
So
about how that went.
right. So in this photo, which was, I'm trying to make sure I do this right. So it's so awkward to do it on camera this way. But Mariano Luca, his son Francesco Luca, and Francesco's mother, Mariano's wife, Clara. And this was taken in the '40s. And what's really interesting is that I had the opportunity to have brunch with Francesco Luca just about 3 weeks ago. He's 98 years old, I offered to pick him up. He said, no, 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 I drive my own car. I don't need somebody to pick me up. I'm like, wow. We sat down, had a wonderful brunch. He shared a telegram that he got from President John F. Kennedy, and it's on a Western Union telegram, and it says, "Dear, dear Mariano, you have my deep gratitude for the efforts made on behalf and during the long and arduous campaign. Your contributions to our governmental process restore this nation's fundamental strength. May I express the hope that the future holds the promise of a new and greater success for you and Columbus Day. Sincerely, John F. Kennedy." And, he handed this to me over poached eggs, and I'm like, wow, this is really pretty amazing. Um, Mariano typified persistence and determination. There's an old saying, Chris, that Italians don't get what they wish for, they get what they work for. And Mariano Luca worked his butt off to make sure that Christopher Columbus and Italian Americans were revered with the national holiday. And it's really pretty amazing. I have a quote here. I don't know if I got it. Do I have a minute to quick read this?
Oh, go ahead. I was going to ask you if you wanted to read something else. So go ahead.
I can't wait to have espresso with you. Anyway, so this is what it's an old Italian saying. I came to America because I heard the streets were paved with gold. When I got here, I found out three things. First, the streets weren't paved with gold. Second, they weren't paved at all. And third, I was expected to pave them. So you can see how being disillusioned in Italy and Sicily with poverty and coming over here, they thought they were walking into something that was much more glamorous and beautiful, and they found themselves actually the stewards, the catalysts, the workers that transformed America and paved those roads, not necessarily with gold, but with their blood, sweat, and tears. And it's really poignant to know that they weren't disillusioned. They didn't head back. They stuck it out. They learned English. They became good Americans. They added to the value and to the currency and the fabric of American life. And I'm so proud that we get a chance to tell that story at our Italian Cultural Center. And there's so many other Italian cultural centers throughout the nation that do that. And Chris, as fellow Italian Americans, we owe our ancestors a debt of thanks for their sacrifices, and we stand on their shoulders. We really do.
That's quite true. Quite true. It's not a single day that goes by that I don't remember the lessons my grandparents taught me.
Oh, sure.
So, in fact, I wrote a book about it, but that's another story. John, how do people get involved with the Cultural Center in Buffalo? How do they go about doing that?
Sure. So, interestingly enough, when we opened our doors, we started with 184 members, paid members. We now have crossed the line at over 1,450 members. If that isn't an endorsement, I don't know what is. I know that the largest cultural agency in Buffalo and it's been around since 1901, has 1,200 members, and that tells you something about what the Italian story and how it resonates here in Buffalo. But how can well, first of all, they can walk right in the door, Chris, and they can join, and we welcome anybody. You do not, and I underscore, you do not have to be Italian American to be a member, but you can go to ccibuffalo.org and learn all about it. Our membership fee is so darn reasonable that it's less than an espresso per month. And when you join, we give you a free espresso. I think that anybody who cares about Italian culture would be interested in this. And here's an interesting factoid. Uh, Clearly, 20% of our membership are people who are Ukrainian, Polish, German, Hispanic, people of color, um, Muslim. We have people from all walks and all races and all faiths that are members. One thing we ask is that they be respectful of our culture, and we actually have no problem trumpeting theirs. So um, I'm married to somebody who's Polish. She's a volunteer. She makes terrific coffee and devotes her time. And I want people to come and see us as a microcosm of the city, as a robust neighborhood anchor, not your uh, grandfather's Italian club per se, but honoring your grandfather's Italian values.
So there actually is a question, if you can answer really quickly. Where is the center actually located? What's the address?
Well, actually, it's a secret, Chris, and I no, it's proudly standing on the corners of Hertel, Hertel avenues, and Delaware Avenue uh, in Buffalo. It's at 2351 Delaware Avenue, and you can't miss it because the promenade of the courtyard is just spectacular, and it's right in Little Italy. So down the street, we have some terrific Italian restaurants, and we're within a stone's throw of the Olmsted Parks in Delaware and the wonderful mansions on Delaware, and really the site of the 1901 Pan American Exposition. So we hope that many people will come. We get visitors from Italy and from all over New York State and the United States. And Chris, I can't wait to personally welcome you through
I,
our door. And
I promise I will be there. I will be there.
yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you, John, for being here. Thank you all for listening to today's show. I just want to remind you that if you want to be a member of our live audience, just go to stateof.greaterwesternewyork.com and you can register for free every Thursday morning for free. You will get the secret entry code, the link that allows you to be a part of this live audience where you can ask a question of our guests through the little thing there. I actually asked the question, but you can tell me what question you want to ask. I'll do that. Now, I realize lots of people have to work, and lunch isn't a good time during the workday to step aside and watch something, but you can always watch the show repeated on our website. Same thing, stateof.greaterwesternewyork.com. Go to the archives there, and you will be able to see it. If you want to see a rebroadcast, you can just like our Facebook page or join our YouTube group, and it's rebroadcast every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. If you like the page and join the group, you will be notified by those platforms when it starts airing. That's it for this week. Thank you for being here, and we will see everyone next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Chris.